I was trying to be a Christian artist. I wanted to be another Christian artist, you know. But no record companies were interested in me. Even after I had a very successful... Well, even with my voice, there are many, many singers in the United States. Out of a desperation and disappointment and rejection, I just purposed in my heart that I'm just going to please God. I just want to sing for Him.
It was strange, not in the loud, chaotic way, but in the unsettling way of someone who never quite fit the room. And he didn't seem to care. He didn't sing like the gospel singers before him. He didn't lead worship the way church expected. He smiled a lot, laughed on stage. He told people to clap, shout, and dance in spaces trained for silence and restraint. To some, it was uncomfortable. To others, it was revolutionary.
Back to those days when you were being discovered and now you're gaining popularity, what was that like? Because you said your journey started much earlier than that. So did it matter that it took you that long to gain popularity?
In the early years it did, because it was, in the first 8 years, it was a long period of rejection because I was doing something that other churches were not doing. Praise and worship did not become a legitimate genre of music until the 90s. That's when it began to be recognized. And in those early years, yes, it was difficult because I was writing songs that were just directly out of scripture, okay? And they were not songs of going to heaven or songs of going up the rough side of the mountain or waiting until, you know, I'm going to see the sweet by and by. No, it weren't songs like that. They were songs about authority of the believer and power in the spirit and walking in joy and peace and truth and love. And that's what my music was about. And it just that, and even the style of the music did not fit into the general church scene. And I had spent almost 10 years in secular music, and so the music that I was writing had kind of a, I don't want to say worldly flavor, but it was a more sophisticated sound, flavor than what was being played in the church.
Before the crowds, before the awards, before millions of albums sold, Ron Kenoly was a boy from Coffeyville, Kansas. One of 6 sons raised almost entirely by his mother, Edith. His father, a military man, was largely absent. Stability came from church. Music came from church. Meaning came from church. That was where he first learned to sing, in a children's choir. And even then, people noticed. He wasn't shy. He wasn't cautious. He sang like someone who believed joy was not optional. After high school, Kenoly left Kansas for Hollywood, a move that made little sense for a church boy in the 1960s. In 1965, he joined the United States Air Force, serving for 3 years. While enlisted, he toured military bases with a band called the Mellow Fellows, performing popular top 40 songs. This mattered because before Ron Kenoly became a worship leader, he became an entertainer.
So Kenoly, you were you had a stint in the Air Force?
Yes, the military, yes.
That period you were in the military, did you ever consider worship, as in ministry in worship, as something you're going to do?
No. No, I didn't. When I was in the Air Force, I was singing secular music, pop music, clubs, rock and roll music, soul music. That's what I was doing, and I won several contests while I was in the military. Now, keep in mind, when I was in the military, that was back during the time that America was engaged in a war in Vietnam, and I did not go to Southeast Asia because my brother was already over there, and they have a law that says that if you already have a relative, a family relative in a combat zone, only one can be in that combat zone at a time. So because I didn't go, I had the opportunity to stay on the United States, and I got involved with singing in the clubs on the base, the officers' clubs, the non-commissioned officers' club, and the airmen's club, and then I got involved in these music contests called Tops in Blue. Is different variety acts that would travel from base to base in the United States and compete. And so I won all of the contests that I was in, all except the final one, which I didn't win. I got a third place, but I felt like from out of that experience that I could go to Hollywood and be a star. So that's
and what happened to that dream?
Well, no, it manifested. I went to Hollywood. I got a few hit records. I never got one of the big blockbuster hits, but my music got played on the radio, and you got some chart ratings. And and I'm going into my testimony here, but my mother and my wife prayed me out of those nightclubs and all of that other that Hollywood scene that was just completely opposite. The lifestyle was completely opposite of what I had grown up in. You know, I grew up in a Christian home, in a Christian environment, and it wasn't anything about that lifestyle or that music industry arena that was God-like or Christian-like.
Okay.
And so they commenced praying for me and prayed me out of it.
Okay.
After leaving the military, he moved fully into Los Angeles music scene. Nightclubs, R&B recording deals with major labels like MCA and A&M. He wasn't marginal. He was walking, visible, and climbing. But the climb came at a cost. By the early 1970s, the pressure of the industry began to fracture his personal life and family. In 1975, during a period of deep personal crisis, Ron Kenoly recommitted his life to Jesus Christ, a moment he would later describe as a turning point that redirected everything. What's often missed is this: he didn't abandon his boldness, he redirected it. In the late 1970s, Ron Kenoly tried to enter the gospel music world and failed repeatedly. The industry didn't know what to do with someone who sounded too polished for the church and too joyful for tradition, so he decided something unusual. He produced his own album. In 1983, you ought to listen to this marked his first real break. 2 years later, in 1985, Ron Kenoly began full-time ministry as Minister of Music at Jubilee Christian Center in San Jose, California. This is where the strangeness became undeniable. Kenoly didn't just lead songs, he led atmospheres. He turned worship into participation. He invited movements where there had been formality, and people responded. In 1991, he released Jesus is Alive with integrity music. What followed was unprecedented in modern worship history. His first 8 live albums sold over 4 million copies. In the 1990s alone, his worship recordings generated more than $24 million in revenue, numbers rarely associated with praise and worship music at the time. But the recordings were secondary, the gatherings were the phenomenon. In the United States, Ron Kenoly routinely led meetings of 10,000 to 15,000 worshippers. Internationally, the numbers grew even larger, including a single gathering in Bangalore, India, with over 200,000 people. This wasn't hype, it was structure, preparation, music excellence, and a leader unafraid of joy. In 1998, for the live recording of Majesty, Kenoly assembled a 300-voice choir, a full orchestra, and an 8,000-person congregation, blending gospel, classical skill, and congregational worship into one massive expression. In 1989, he moved to Orlando, Florida, and founded the Academy of Praise, a mentoring institution designed to train worship leaders, musicians, and praise teams, extending his influence beyond performance into legacy. His recognition followed Angel Award, Dove Award, international honors, including being named Psalmist of the Century by Cesar Castellanos of the Missionary Charismatic International Church in Bogota. Yet, what made Ron Kenoly strange never changed. He believed worship could be loud and reverent, disciplined and joyful, professional and spiritual. He stood on stages smiling when seriousness was expected, and invited people to rejoice when restraint was the norm. And that boldness, that refusal to conform, reshaped modern praise and worship forever. Because sometimes the people who change everything are the ones who are just strange enough to try.
Hi, this is Ron Kenoly,
And I'm Tavita Kenoly.
and we're looking forward to coming to Denmark to be with you at the festival. We're going to have a great time. God bless you. I look forward to seeing you.
God bless. See you then.
That's good.
I don't know what else.